Hello, everyone. We're back with another LMScast episode. I'm Joshua Millage, and I'm joined with Christopher Badgett. And today we're talking about how to monetize your podcast. And this is in a series, I guess you could say, of monetization type episodes. But monetizing a podcast is slightly different than monetizing a blog. And so, Chris, what do you see as some of those differences?
Well, in the last episode, we talked about how to monetize a blog, and I'd definitely kick it off by also saying congratulations to anybody who's gone to the effort of creating a podcast, which is a huge effort. We all know the power of content marketing. Creating a podcast is difficult and keeping that momentum. So the big difference between that medium format from the written word and blogging, there's a couple things going on. One is the host of the podcast. It tends to have a even higher level of trust with his audience because either it's video podcast or audio podcast, you feel a more real human connection faster than reading the written word in most cases. So even with smaller audiences on a podcast, you tend to have even deeper rapport than somebody with a broader audience who writes frequently. So that's one big difference. The other thing is podcasters are often interviewing other guests or experts in their field and stuff. So they tend to have a very big amount of influence, but also play the role of researcher in the sense of collecting some of the best information and ideas in their industry and so on, which is fertile ground for creating an online course.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages that podcasters have is in the process of creating your podcasts, you are creating your course. And so a good example of that is with our other podcast, InfusionCast, I'm going through the process of explaining people not only how to set up and optimize their Infusionsoft application, but at the same time set up and optimize their website, because I find that that's always seems to be the gap. It doesn't really matter what the business is, whether they're selling info products or whether they're selling, whether they're a coach or a speaker, an author, or a brick and mortar. They have this disconnect between utilizing their website and Infusionsoft well. So every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we go through this process of these are some things you should be doing this week. These are some things we should be doing next week. And as I look at it, those are like modules, And so that's my own unique format over there that we're going through. But I'm really creating a course and a community that's valuable that can be monetized. And I think what's interesting is as I think about it, 6 months from now, really when I have that much content together is when I'm going to personally feel comfortable by going back and taking that and putting it into a system like LifterLMS and creating courses and certifications and things around that. Because I think that it would be valuable to say, hey, I was certified by the InfusionCast methodology, so that when those people go out, if they're ICCs, for instance, they have another badge to say they've been certified in another different way. It lends more social proof. So there's advantages for putting all this in a system like LifterLMS. I mean, the one that I'm not mentioning is the fact that I can now sell that information. And people are going to be like, well, Joshua, why would you sell it? Or how could you even sell it? Because you gave it all away for free on the podcast. And they're right. The thing that I've realized is that there's intrinsic value in structuring information. So having it all in an episode list is inherently less valuable than structuring it and putting it in a course. And some people, and I want people to like suspend their disbelief on that for a second, because it happens all the time. I mean, you mentioned John Lee Dumas. John Lee Dumas has an incredible program called Podcaster's Paradise. It's cheaper now, but when I bought into it, I paid $2,000 for it. That's a lot of money. And the fact of the matter is, I could have found all the things that I learned on YouTube videos and all over the web. I could have, but I
watched you become an efficient podcaster, not just with one podcast, but with two podcasts like that.
Yeah.
So that course,
because
it what you wanted to do.
Yeah, that $2,000 was time saved because I didn't have to go scouring all the web for a way of doing things. I look at a guy, John Lee Dumas, who's putting out a podcast every stinking day, and go, I want to know what he knows. Like, I want to know the inside of that machine. And I got to see the inside of that machine. And beyond that, the community is which is what has really been helpful. I mean, there's so many brilliant paradisers, and I'm need to be more active, but I've been pretty active in the Facebook group and that sort of thing. And that community has inspired me too. So there's the aspect of the content, people, what's the old saying? Like, people come for the content, but stay for the community. And I think that's the thing that has helped me with that. And that goes to show you too, with a podcast, InfusionCast, for instance, has about 2,000 unique listens every week. And so there's a community there. And so now I'm in the process of taking the community that listens to me every week and get them to engage with me somewhere else. And so right now, InfusionCast Confidential, our Facebook group, is that. But all of that to say is this is how you kind of connect the dots in the podcast realm, bringing it together into a product that people would be willing to purchase. So,
absolutely, yeah. I think a good word to really wrap your head around is curation or curating. When you create a podcast or you write a blog, you're curating content.
Yeah.
And in the past, the internet was all about, oh wow, I have access to all this information. But now it's about, there's too much information, we're all overloaded. Let's curate it, get the best of the best. You do that the first round with the podcast, and then now that you've curated, you can take it another step and curate it even more into an even more valuable online course. And just for everybody listening, we talked about John Lee Dumas and Podcaster's Paradise, his online course. But we'd like to also talk about Mixergy, which is a great podcast I've been listening to for years. It's my free business education. Andrew Warner, who personally, I believe, behind that. It's an awesome podcast about entrepreneurship, especially in the digital space. Andrew takes an interesting model with how he blends his podcasts with online education. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe he has guests come on for an hour for free, and then maybe some of those guests, they stick around for another hour and teach something more in-depth and tactical about whatever they kind of covered in the first part in the free episode, and that goes into his membership site as the advanced training that the members pay a monthly for, which is called Mixergy Premium.
Right.
Is that right?
It is right. Yeah, I mean that's one of the ways. I don't know, his format has changed a little bit now, but yeah, he's doing. He has done that format before, and yes, so people do come on for an interview that's more of their story, and then they teach. Yeah, then they teach the tactics in the premium, and he's done such a good job in the last year, really, of organizing that. You can go on and click PR, for instance, and there's all this like advanced courses on PR and that sort of thing. So I think, in my experience. And I will say this boldly, that I think if you want a business education and you make a point to listen to a Mixergy interview every day, in 6 months, you'll have more tactical, relevant business knowledge than you do if you went and got an MBA. And that's because I have an MBA and I can speak directly to that I think in the 6 months when I was recovering from an illness that I got in Asia. I won't get into that story right now, but I was basically on my back for 6 months, and every day I listened to a minimum of one Mixergy interview. And in that 6 month period, from what I had learned, it landed me a job in Los Angeles at an ad agency, because I was able to pitch bloggers and I understood that world because I had heard so many stories and I had learned really well. And I had joined Mixergy Premium and I had learned the tactics too. So I had the theoretical from the story side of it, and I had the tactical, like these are the things I can actually do, which is his methodology. So that's another format, and I think what I admire.
There's another rubric there I just want to give the listeners, which is I've heard it described this way: the free podcast contains the why and the what, but you got to pay for the how-to.
Yeah.
So it's just a way to think about it. If you're thinking about, oh, how could I start a podcast and then build a course?
Yeah. Absolutely.
The what's free and the how, you got to pay for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the thing with all of this that I want to kind of end on is this isn't for the faint of heart. Like, it takes stamina. John Lee Dumas, I see is now in the 800s in terms of podcasts he's put out. Andrew's broke 1,000. which was awesome. That 1000 interview was pretty cool, the way he did that one. But, these guys have been doing this for a while, for a long time. And so the people who are listening, make sure you have that long-term mindset. And if you're someone who just wants to build a course, like our system, LifterLMS, is perfect for that. But I think it is enhanced when you start to do something with a commitment to consistency and putting out something. So we've talked about blogging, in our last episode. We're talking about podcasting in this one. Both of them, the reason that these methods are going to make you successful is you're putting things out there, free things out there for people to get to know you. That makes it much more likely for them to buy your paid stuff. And that's something that's really, really important. I think in a future episode, we should definitely cover how to ask your audience what they would purchase, so you don't build something that they wouldn't want to purchase. That's kind of in this, and we're not touching on that today. But the key is put something out there, market something, do something to get eyeballs on you, so that you can make your course profitable. I think a lot of the edupreneurs, as I would like to call them, are missing that, and it's key. It's crucial if you actually want to make this a full-time thing.
Absolutely. And I'll just cap it off with one pro tip, and that is, if I had to choose between doing a podcast or doing a blog as my free line of content, I would actually choose the podcast for two reasons. The first reason is that, like we do here with LMScast, this podcast, our conversation here, gets transcribed and basically turned into a blog also.
Right.
So you're killing two birds with one stone.
Right, totally.
The other thing is, as you go into a online course and online education, and whether you build your learning management system with LifterLMS or not, is once you've practiced podcasting, you're getting good at audio. So if you want to, you can make more money by selling a course that includes multimedia format. It's not just the written word. It may contain some audio and some video. And starting a podcast is a great way to get comfortable and used to teaching, either on camera or at least in the audio format.
Absolutely. All right. Well, there's a lot of nuggets of knowledge and wisdom in this episode for everyone. So I hope you enjoyed it. And please reach out to us at LMScast.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments on this episode. So talk to us there. All right. Until next time, we'll talk to you then.